有网友说，这比100门付费课程加起来都有用。Anthropic 的研究员的这节演讲满满全是干货。如何在生产环境中负责任的 Web Coding， 总结下来分4点。第一，把 Cloud 当成你的产品经理，把 Web Coding 用在叶子节点，而不是核心架构或底层系统上。第3，要关注可验证性，就算不读代码也能判断它对不对。第4，记住指数增长。如果你坚持每一行代码都要自己写自己读，这将会成为你的一个巨大劣势。让我们一起来看看具体怎么说的吧。
So let's talk about how to succeed at vibe coding. And my main advice here is ask not what Claude can do for you, but what you can do for Claude. I think when you're vibe coding, you are basically acting as a product manager for Claude. So you need to think like a product manager. What guidance or context would a new employee on your team need to succeed at this task? I think a lot of times we're too used to doing sort of a very quick back and forth chat with AI of make this feature, fix this bug. But a human, if it was their first day on the job and you just said, hey, implement this feature, there's no way you'd expect them to actually succeed at that. You need to give them a tour of the code base. You need to tell them what are the actual requirements and specifications and constraints that they need to understand. And I think that as we vibe code, that becomes our responsibility to feed that information into Claude to make sure that it has all of that same context and is set up to succeed. When I'm working on features with Claude, I often spend 15 or 20 minutes collecting guidance into a single prompt and then let Claude cook after that. And that 15 or 20 minutes isn't just me, writing the prompt by hand. This is often a separate conversation where I'm talking back and forth with Claude. It's exploring the code base, it's looking for files. We're building a plan together that captures the essence of what I want, what files are going to need to be changed, what patterns in the code base should it follow. And once I have that artifact, all of that information, then I give it to Claude, either in a new context or say, hey, let's go execute this plan. And I've typically seen once I put that effort into collecting all that information, Claude has a very, very high success rate of being able to complete something in a very good way. And the other thing I'll say here is that you need to be able to ask the right questions. And despite the title of my talk, I don't think that vibe coding and prod is for everybody. I don't think that people that are fully non-technical should go and try to build a business fully from scratch. I think that is dangerous because they're not able to ask the right questions. They're not able to be an effective product manager for Claude when they do that. And so they're not going to succeed. We recently merged a 22,000 line change to our production reinforcement learning codebase that was written heavily by Claude. So how on earth did we do this responsibly? And yes, this is the actual screenshot of the diff from GitHub for the PR. The first thing is we asked what we could do for Claude. This wasn't just a single prompt that we then merged. There was still days of human work that went into this, of coming up with the requirements, guiding Claude, and figuring out what the system should be. And we really, really embraced our roles as the product manager for Claude in this feature. The change was largely concentrated in leaf nodes in our codebase, where we knew it was okay for there to be some tech debt because we didn't expect these parts of the codebase to need to change in the near future. And the parts of it that we did think were important that would need to be extensible, we did heavy human review of those parts. And lastly, we carefully designed stress tests for stability, and we designed the whole system so that it would have very easily human verifiable inputs and outputs. And what that let us do, these last two pieces, is it let us create these sort of verifiable checkpoints so that we could make sure that this was correct even without understanding or reading the full underlying implementation. Our biggest concern was stability, and we were able to measure that even without reading the code by creating these stress tests and running them for long durations. And we were able to verify correctness based on the input and outputs of the system that we designed it to have. So basically, we designed this system to be understandable and verifiable even without us reading all the code. So to leave you with the closing thoughts about how to vibe code in prod responsibly, be Claude's PM. Ask not what Claude can do for you, but what you can do for Claude. Focus your vibe coding on the leaf nodes, not the core architecture and underlying systems so that if there is tech debt, it's contained and it's not in important areas. Think about verifiability and how you can know whether this change is correct without needing to go read the code yourself. And finally, remember the exponential. It's okay today if you don't vibe code, but in a year or two, it's going to be a huge disadvantage if you yourself are, demanding that you read every single line of code or write every single line of code. You're going to not be able to take advantage of the newest wave of models that are able to produce very large chunks of work for you. And you are going to become the bottleneck if we don't get good at this. So overall, that is vibe coding and prod responsibly. And I think this is going to become one of the biggest challenges for the software engineering industry over the next few years.